For 40 years, I've walked the line between worlds and am well versed in death. But I want to have faith in humans. Give me something to believe in. Earth below me, sky above me, fire within me. Brought to you by UPRN Network. I'm Trish Mo, and this is The Missing Piece. Whoo! What a night. Good evening, New Orleans. I'm your host, Trish, and this is The Missing Piece. It is Mo Monday. I am back, and I know I've had kind of a rough past, like 6 months since I guess it was like April that I got sick again. Anyways, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. It is Monday, November 14th. We're broadcasting live from New Orleans, 105.3 FM and United Public Radio Network. I would also like to thank Carnation for sponsoring me. That's very important, as well as all of my listeners. The amount of support I have received this year and the amount my channel has grown is crazy, and I'm excited. Again, I've been trying to get my website and my forms and everything in hell. I swear, I hate the administrative part of anything online, but it's a necessary evil. So we're getting that worked out. People can just fill out a contact form online to request to be on my show, be a guest on my show, or to interview me as well. So I have that up and running shortly. I have said that over and over, and because I created like 4 websites because I'm a perfectionist in that sense. So moving on, tonight I'm going to do so. Here's what's been happening, right? I've never actually shared these before because I didn't think it was something that was meant for the collective necessarily, because a lot of times it only um, was relevant and synchronized in my own life. But this past week, I've gotten tons of messages, like more so for the collective. So I thought I would start sharing those. Yes, Tanner. I am. I'm done. Well, trying to be the boss. It's not working necessarily. um. So I what have I been doing? Oh, yes. This ghost app I probably 2 weeks ago really started popping up. I didn't even know I still had this on my phone. It was one that I don't usually use these type of tools, and a few months ago I just got a notification that it said the real ghost detector app is what it's called, actually. And I'm turning it on right now, by the way. You can download it. It's a free app. I apologize, I do not know who created this, because oh, see, it says there's like a blue ghost right, oh, whoa, no, sorry, right behind me somewhere. um Anyways, so I started getting these messages, crazy stuff, like, here, just a second, let me turn that off real quick. I will show you what I have just in the last week, because this might be relevant to someone, and it is a lot of the time in language or vocabulary that is not of this era. So sometimes I have to look things up and look up definitions, because I don't even know what half these things mean. Um, okay, so this was on Wednesday, for instance. All of a sudden, it comes on. I get Zendavest reportable letter bonum. See, if anybody knows what any of that means, maybe it's in another language. I don't know. I haven't looked that one up. I look a lot of them up, but but it's just past this past week during the lunar eclipse, I assume. There's a lot of crazy energy, and I got all of these messages. And so um that is one thing that I'm going to start sharing on my other channel as well. And um let's see. So chalcostigma, I don't even know. I don't know what that means. We should see what that means. Um, but sometimes, oh my gosh, that's a space shuttle, right? Well, it's two things. I just saw a space shuttle. Maybe I'm imagining things. It's also a hummingbird. Uh, so that's interesting. Um, and a lot of times, again, it's like mixed messages. It's not the normal way that I receive messages from spirit. So um, I don't know. It's a Zendavest. Like, see, I don't know what that is. Tumefaction. I should have like sight word Monday. Um, yeah, I did too, Tanner. You can come on and talk to me if you want. You can it's called here. I'll put it in the. Um, it is called Real Ghost Detector. And that is I've had it forever. It's not, it's a pretty simple, basic, uh, yeah, real ghost detector. Oh my gosh, whoops, sorry. I just meant to comment as myself. Okay, so that is the app right now. Wow, there's like rocket ships on it. So it does have ads, but sometimes here's what you have to realize in well, at least for me in mediumship and getting messages in this way, sometimes the ads are very relevant too. Like whatever they have playing on them might be relevant in the story or whatever that you're getting. I should have had my iPad so I could also um interact from that as well. So, okay, let me see. But the problem is, I don't know. I need like a translator. Hey, that's what I could do. I could have like, I could have a translator. Okay, my next word. Um, hold on, Tanner. I'll message you. My next word is I'm gonna type it in that. These are sight words. This is right now. This is live. Like this is definition. And that is from a blue. Here's my next one. Um, Infinity 8 ball. It's giving me an ad for um, a pool game, I guess. That's what that would be. let me. Okay, if anybody knows what sparganium is, because I certainly don't. Unmemorable is the next one. So MB, wow, that's a ah, I had an echo. That's kind of relevant, I think. Okay. So I'm trying not to echo here. Okay, this is relevant in itself. So here shortly, I Tanner Rutledge interviewed me. Oh my gosh, it was like probably a month ago now, maybe. I know it was before Halloween. Um, but our last messages were about this app actually, and was me. I had messaged him because he's also a personal trainer. Um, and this app gave me information about my own health. I'm hypoglycemic and my blood sugar was dropping, which I get messages like that from spirit all the time in my surrounding. And so I had gotten, a message like that, and I was telling Tanner this because I thought that was really interesting, that it would come through on uh, kind of a ghost app like that on the iPhone. And so that was my last message to him on, oh my gosh, it would have been October 26th. So here we are a few weeks later, and he just happened to tune in my show. And here I am, like all of a sudden, I think to do something with this ghost app. I don't even know why. Like that's not what I was planning on doing tonight. So it was out of the blue. Um, and that's what came up. So David Hope, hello from West Texas. I don't know why I'm freezing. Like my computer is frozen. Okay. Hi, Tanner.
Hey, how's it going? Has it really been that long?
Yeah, I
Oh,
was like, "Is
wow.
it has been over a month, what?" But when I went to send you the link, that's when I saw that the last message I sent you was about this like ghost app detector. Oh my gosh, there's so many words coming up. So I'm gonna start typing them in the box. So MB, like the letter M and B. I
Mhm.
don't know if that's an initial or I could clarify that.
Mm.
The real ghost detector, David. That's what it's called. So I have, and what's crazy about this is, again, I don't know what compelled me to use this online. Oh my, but there's weird ads that keep coming up. Like this is some karaoke ads. So MB, uh, Bly, Blygia. I apologize, Tanner. I didn't even
Oh,
introduce
yeah.
you. I'm rude.
You're good.
So you can introduce yourself, your
Yeah.
podcast and everything, which is amazing.
Yeah,
Mm,
thank you. I actually, I recently took that down, and I'm focusing on my other platform, Writing Fright. So, for 20
nice.
years, I've investigated the paranormal. I was a licensed private investigator before then. Worked with law enforcement, worked with attorneys, tracking down missing persons, doing investigations for child welfare, child abuse, basically everything over a 15-year period that I could stick my nose into. I did, including the paranormal. So for 20 years, I've investigated the paranormal, and yeah, I started a podcast 2 years ago called Ghost Hunter Advice. I just wanted a resource out there for people that I didn't have. I learned a lot of things the hard way, made a lot of mistakes, did a lot of things that were honestly pretty reckless, and just wanted something to help people avoid that. and
What do
so
you
I
think
put
you
that
did
out.
that was reckless?
Oh God, let's see, breaking into places to investigate when I was a teenager.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
that one. I think everybody does that at some point. I'm not
I was
condoning it.
gonna say, I think that was a really big thing back in the day. Now places have started, adding security and all those nonsense. That no, just kidding. That's not nonsense. But
It's
but
nonsense. I mean, it keeps us out when
but
there's ghosts in there. But
right.
yeah,
But I
the
think a
cops.
lot now that paranormal activity is more popular, I think it's the security's increased, I would say.
We also tried some stuff with different cleansings and different stuff that I had
Oh,
no business doing.
yeah. No,
Um,
that's not good.
yeah, and so that was interesting. Trying different things from different religions, trying different things to see like what works, what doesn't. Trying to get to the bottom of why certain things work in certain situations and why they didn't. Trying to push boundaries and get catalogs. And I think last week, yeah, trying to catalog everything and put a nice little label on it.
It's
Um,
a they like to call it exploring.
Yeah, urban exploring, that's the term.
We're
Back
going on
then,
an
police were cool with
adventure.
it. Yeah. It's not an adventure, it's a felony. But there's
Right.
a
That adventure might be prison, but,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a whole other orange is the new black
Okay,
thing.
sorry. My god, so this ad this ad comes on again, like, right when you said that. I don't know what that I don't know what these words are tonight, like, I don't even it's not in my vocabulary.
Channeling like
Okay.
a fitness or not fitness, a physics
I
professor.
don't even know. No, Sparganium, okay, is that was up a little bit ago. That's actually a genus of flowering plants, uh,
Huh.
temperate regions. It's a American burr reed perennial plant found in the United States of America and Canada. Resembles grass.
So you're channeling a horticulturalist, if I can speak
Right.
to
Why is
you.
this? Wait, wait. Oh, here. It's from Michigan, Lake
Hmm,
Superior, Minnesota, Ontario, Wisconsin, northern Michigan is where that can be found, and the New England area. So sandpapery, hammered diner, that proteus, and see, it's stuff that's never happened with this app before. It just started happening a few weeks ago. And I'm like, "What are you trying to tell me?" Because then it would mention other countries, and 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 I'm usually very good at being able to identify and communicate with what is giving me this information, but maybe it's different. It's like an interference.
it
You know what
could
I
be
mean?
like a
Like,
lot of these apps have they have an algorithm that's meant to like make people explore more, but it'll just push out random words. Since it's been happening 2 weeks ago,
hmm,
I'd be interested to get
because
into
it
the app and check
happens.
and see when it updated.
Yeah, I was gonna say it happens, but it happens when like I could be in the middle of nowhere with no Wi-Fi. I could be have zero cell phone signal on airplane mode, whatever, and it's usually relevant to something that's happening in 2 weeks.
Huh. That's super interesting.
Unless it's directly for me, like the blood sugar thing and stuff. Sometimes
Mhm.
that happens a lot too. Um, oh, Australian. Thank you. So you're Australian. Huh. I wonder if MB are your initials. I don't know what this
Let's see.
whoever's communicating with me is like. I don't know, people in this in 2022 are brain dead because they don't know what these words mean. And oh, they said manageable.
Ha!
I'm sorry. We didn't have the same education as you.
It's like
Okay,
certain
so
things are so much better, but language is not one of them.
so Haemoproteus is a genus of something that are parasitic in birds, reptiles, and amphibians. It derives from the Greek word haima, which is blood. So it's avian, an avian parasite, a bird parasite. Bird, huh?
See, this is what I would do, but, like, I would just give out muscle names because that's all I've got, and just mess with people that were on the app. It's like, "Oh, yeah? Check this out, Latimus Dorsey."
um, what does this word mean? That's a children's book author. I don't know who she is. Laura Resal, Colorado-based children author for about human rights.
Hmm.
That's interesting. Infinity 8 Ball. So, with all of the modern technology in paranormal research, because it's actually become a very big thing with universities and science journals and things like that. Um, they tend to discredit, not discredit, but disregard any evidence based on, well, from mediumship anyways, based on people just contacting family members, et cetera, things like that, because they're more interested in the scientific approach. There's grants out there now by publishing companies and such for specific afterlife communication um, studies. Um, I guess, what, if any, tools have you ever used in investigations? And what do you think is the most effective?
Oh, this is fun. Everything. So, like, I've done this for a while, and there are these old tactics because 'cause we've been doing this for over 100 years, specifically trying to use science to investigate the paranormal, specifically spirits and mediumship. So, I've used everything from the old school, putting flour down on the floor in places where we believe a spirit might have been walking through to see if the flower is disturbed. We've used, bit more high tech hang on with infrared motion detectors to do that. We use various types of field meters and EMF detectors, including like REM pods and different devices that basically take in the ambient electromagnetic field of an area and will give us an idea if something passes through there. Probably
Huh.
the most effective that I've found in doing that, and these aren't ghost detectors. There's no such thing as a ghost detector that detects a spirit. What we do is basically just try to um, get a reading on as many environmental um, points of data as possible. So barometric pressure, temperature, humidity, the electromagnetic field of an area. We'll try to control what variables that we can. We'll try to keep things the same as they are when the manifestation takes place. And then sometimes we'll even pump energy into an area to see if it's metabolized and convert it
Wait,
into a usable energy.
what does that mean?
Okay, so think of well, from a fitness point of view. So we eat food. The food is broken down by our metabolism. It's metabolized into different things that our body can use. Basically, it ends up eventually becoming things like glycogen that's broken down and used to form ATP molecules, which are used to fire muscle fibers. So the leading theory in how ghosts manifest is they draw energy in from the area around them and convert it to something usable so that they can manifest to actually move an item or communicate or
Oh,
do whatever they need to interact with us and the physical environment around them. So I call it metabolizing because it's basically the same thing that we do with food. Um,
interesting.
and just a term that I started using. But, yeah, so we'll do different things like that just to see how things are working, and if it works that way. And with electromagnetic field detectors, um, that's probably one of my favorite pieces, just as far as, like, ways to analyze what's around the environment. We also use Geiger counters, thermal cameras, different things to measure, ambient heat and ambient temperature of a room.
What
Um
is a Geiger counter for people that don't know?
oh, Geiger counter measures. Let's see, this one was gamma radiation in
Okay.
an area. Generally, it's flatlined or super low. Sometimes it would spike up. I honestly don't believe that that particular spectrum was affected. I think it's just something screwing with the equipment. But, with EMF meters, specifically a natural EMF meter, it's able to basically take the entire room into account, and if something like if I walk into a room, it sets it off. So if we set a camera up, we set, different things in there to monitor the room while it's in there. If it goes off at the same time there's a manifestation, a voice, or a shadow, it just gives us another correlating piece of data, um, to say, "Hey, we think this is happening and this is why it's happening." Now that's different than the ones you see on TV where people are walking around waving it around. Those things have a range of about 10 feet, and it looks more like a flashlight than like a field. W
So, an interesting thing, I mean, as you said that, maybe that's what this has been doing because right when I said explain, metabolizing oh my gosh, no, sorry
Mhm.
everyone. There's our little spam people in the chat room there. There's been a few of them. So,
We saw that
anyways,
one.
right as you oh my goodness. So right as you were saying that, it said neat. I was about to say I just got really cold. So obviously this comes on when there is a spirit directly around me. On the usually there's multiple and in different colors, which means different. What do the different colors mean? You told me once as far as the because see, I don't use anything. I don't use any of these. I don't um is it the different is it how strong their frequency is?
I don't think
Do you think
so. So
that's
this
what
is when we get into like the technical part of it, if anybody is out here doing this seriously, the answer is always I have no idea. That's that's why I'm looking. But what we've noticed and what it appears to be is just however the electromagnetic field of an area is disrupted. So I don't believe that it is the spirit itself. I think that when it's trying to manifest, one of the things that's moved and disturbed is the natural EM field of the area, and that's what we're picking up on the devices.
huh.
Kinda like,
So
if you use a REM pod, like the base level of this is a REM pod. It's an antenna and it measures static energy in an area. So, I can't remember if it's low frequency EMF, but basically, if you put your hand anywhere near the antenna, you're disrupting the static field, and it's not really picking up your hand. It's picking up the energy in your hand and how it's interacting with the static and electromagnetic field around that device. I think it works about the same way for ghosts. Now, obviously, they're not, physical, but,
right.
they are actually interacting with something on a level when they're peeking through to however you wanna term it, however you wanna look at it and what it looks like in your head. whether it's someone moving a shower curtain over and there's the ripples through the curtain, or if we're talking about like dimensional areas and some
Stop that, shut up. Tanner, that happened to me this morning. Stop it. It's like this is channeling you or something. Oh my goodness. So that's exactly what happened. So this thing said knee, like it spelled out knee on this. I'm taking screenshots of the as it's telling me words. And I got really cold then, and that's basically where it was. And it said intercellular and all these things, like as before you were saying them, actually. So that was interesting. Um, but then this morning, I was getting ready for work. I went to brush my teeth. I always close the shower curtain because I don't know, I'm OCD and it bothers me when it's just left open in my bathroom. And it kept opening like by itself. I mean, I'm surrounded by spirits all the time, so this isn't new to me. But it was like a thing that purposely made me pay attention to, because this hasn't happened in a long. I mean, I've had shower curtains move and do all kinds of things, but this was like I intentionally remember everything closing it, and I came back and it was open. And I'm like, okay, I thought maybe I like forgot or didn't or whatever the last time I was in there. I closed it again, right? And then I'm standing there and like, I don't know, walk 3 feet away to get my toothbrush or whatever, and come back and I stand up, and see behind me in the mirror, and it's open again, and I'm like, okay. But anyways, the fact that you said that is obviously.
Now that's interesting. Like, I have a similar place in the room that I use for a studio. I'll always forget to turn the light off, and then I'll come back in and it's off. Like I know that I left it on, and it's not an easy light switch to flip. But the switch is down, the lights are off, and I'm like, whatever, thanks. I appreciate
Again
it.
with the lights, I was so excited. The one time everybody always says that I don't have enough. Oh, now it works. Now it works. See, now it's making me a liar. I was just gonna say, I put this like bright ring light thing on my computer, and it died automatically right after I
Oh
put it up,
no.
like right after I started my show. And and I was like, okay, well, obviously something drained it. Now it works. So that's awesome.
Yeah, mine plugs in. I had totally forgot to turn it on, and I was like, "Why am I looking so red?"
Oh
That's why.
wow.
There we go.
That's great. Let's see. David says, I don't know what this is. I don't know what
Oh yeah.
anything is because I don't use any.
Ask whatever questions you want. So EMF pump, I use them. I have used them in the past. Like I said, when we're pumping energy into an area to see if it'll be used or to see if it'll trigger a manifestation. I do not use them now. I think I talked to you about this before. I'm extremely sensitive to electromagnetic fields. I get ill. When we're going in, when we're investigating, the first thing we do is try to look for a natural explanation. We had a case not too long ago where there were feelings of dread in the hallway. People actually saw things moving down this hallway. And when I stepped into it, I got sick. I got dizzy, had to hold on to the wall, thought I was going to throw up. I was like, you know what? Let's go down to the basement and check this out. They had a DUI, probably at the time they were putting it together. Yeah, they had a DIY fuse box
Oh, that's
in the
relevant
basement.
too, though. DUI. Be careful drinking and
Yeah.
driving out there.
Yes. Um, so they had done their own fuse box and it was a mess. And when we took the equipment down there, everything was it just buried the needle. So I was like, okay, you have a ton of ambient EMF energy. It causes hallucinations. It interacts with the prefrontal cortex, causes hallucinations, feelings of dread, feelings of paranoia, and long term effects could lead to some pretty serious health stuff, especially since they had kids in the house. And it's
Mm.
also the reason that the animals are staying away from it. So they got that fixed. House not haunted. Case closed. But a long way around to talk about the EM pump. I do not use them for that reason because I do get sick whenever we pump too much into the area.
That's, huh. So do you think that, for instance, um, And I'm moving, by the way, because obviously my neighborhoods, well, for anyone who's sensitive to EMF, I live by like two tower, pretty close to two major towers and a power grid. And then there's also, you know, lakes and a river and um a, like train tracks. So all of that energy, I started when I started talking to people in the general region where I live, they talk about all these health problems. Everybody here has gotten like cancer and tumors and all these things. And of course the city says, no, 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 it's fine. Everything's fine. We're not killing you slowly. But um the only reason I it doesn't affect me as much, obviously, is because I purposely do things, like we talked about before, to raise my vibration, I eat healthy, I go out in nature a lot. I get away from the city. I really have to work hard to do that, but a lot of people here don't. Some people are um housebound, like bound to their houses and stuff, so, and they don't have the ability to travel or anything. So um it's really sad, and it's literally entire generations. I mean, these people tell me, like, every neighbor, every random person I talk to has the same exact story. um and their parents did, and their grandparents did. And and it's interesting, and I think this absolutely happens in multiple cities, obviously.
Yeah, something, that you had mentioned there was the railroad tracks, and with it being generational and going back for so long, those railroad ties and the chemicals that leach out of the trains into the soil, it causes cancer. So, like, our house before, we lived in downtown Chattanooga, had a great little bungalow, unfortunately, super close to the train track, and I mean real close to the train track. So we tested the soil. We like to plant and garden, could not, we couldn't plant there. So we ended up having to what we did was we got raised beds and had to have soil trucked in from the country, so that
Huh.
we could do our gardens in raised beds safely so that we weren't poisoning the food that we were eating,
Oh,
because
I was
the
gonna say that as well. I cannot grow anything to save my, unless I buy, unless I have potted plants and
Mhm.
things. And even then, I have to take really, like, do a lot of extra things I wouldn't normally have to indoors or outdoors or wherever I have them. But we tried to plant herbs in a garden bed outside, and the soil was literally too like too acidic, I
Mhm.
believe, or maybe because nothing will grow there. Um Great to see you too, Greg. Thank you for joining us. And then hello, Marcus. Um, so I'm going to type, Tanner, if you know any of these words. Oh no, here we go. So, oh, that's scary. And then Propec. Propec is and this was specific, and it confirmed to me that this is what it was referring to, a property management company in uh like, where is it? The UK? Yes, yes. So whoever that, Sutton Coldfield College and Town Hall in Birmingham, England. So uh
Huh. So that
then I
super long K one, the catamorphism,
uh
looks like a yeah, it's the breaking down of rock by chemical or mechanical processes, so get your soil tested.
interesting.
Yeah, so that's relevant. It's interesting when things are relevant like that.
Well,
But is it the
obviously.
app just listening to what we're saying and then using that to pull a word out of a dictionary? That's always, like, my thoughts when
Mm,
we're dealing with apps, like ghost boxes. If a voice
yes
comes through
and
there and
no.
tells me stuff, then I'm like, "Cool," but
Oh, that's where I was going with that, the whole
Mhm,
thing when it said knee, because I can physically feel anytime this has come on, I have felt a presence before the app has made a notification.
mhm,
You know what I mean? So I already knew something was there before the app was on. And I'm wondering though, since in the time, over the last few months that I was sick and stuff, um, which is another study altogether, if they use other methods, knowing that my intuition isn't as heightened, knowing that I'm not as sharp on my, interpreting messages and things like that, if they're trying to use every resource available, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like
yeah.
any other time it would just come to me, click or and click. Huh. What does that mean? Um Twitter and United Kingdom though. There's something
Hmm.
relevant about that. I just got that. Present. Um
As far as
present
brunch and
maybe?
unconsciousness, I was thinking about mimosas, but that's
Did you say mimosas?
yeah, as far as brunch and what is it, unconscious? I was thinking about mimosas, so that's
Mimosa's a demon, right? Mimosa's a hold
God, no,
on.
it is a cocktail with,
Well, I know what the
yeah.
drink is, but
Oh,
I'm
gotcha.
saying that name is also a demon, right? Well,
I
there's a
did not know
mimosa
that.
tree. I read about this a while back. I was like, wait, because I kept getting that too. When I went to the Sally house, I was talking about mimosa, and then later on, one of those books that you're not supposed to read.
Mhm.
And, I'm one of those like, don't tell me how to live my life type people. So, it's, it's actually, uh, oh my goodness, where did I see that? Um, there's mimosa flower.
I saw something in occult world. Um, I think this was a username that, like, or somebody that, did some kinda translation. This is one of those old, like,
Um,
circa 1996 websites.
Mimosa was the imitator. Yeah,
Yep.
but it's also a star,
Huh, I didn't know that.
second brightest star in Crux.
Hmm.
Interesting. See, we're learning something here.
Oh, yeah, so I think we're on the same page. The, what sacred magic of this is why I don't write fantasy. A Brelin the Mage?
Mimics.
You guys out there listening on the radio are just like, "What is happening?"
Yeah, they're like, what are they taught? Is this English class? Like, what are we doing here?
Did someone have a
Old
seizure?
fashioned definition. Oh my gosh, it's interesting you say that though,
Mhm.
because I started having seizures like probably a few weeks ago.
Oh god, I'm sorry.
Um, old fashioned I don't know why this is relevant, but something that's old fashioned is no longer used, done, or believed by most people. Whoa,
Huh.
that's crazy. Because if you talk about theology and the stars, and this goes back to like the story of Zeus, there's something about mimosa being An antique telephone, an old-fashioned telephone? Well, that's relevant because, like, the spirit phone, that people old fashioned, old fashioned. Old fashioned's another drink. So is this talking about
Mhm.
a bar? Like,
Hmm.
huh? Lordosis? Yoiks? Gram positive? I don't know what any of this means. I know this Tanner's like, what are you? You're crazy, Trish. I don't know what.
No, but I'm
I
sitting there, I'm
know.
like, "Huh." I
I
wonder,
know.
like, if somebody was on the radio and you had a ghost who was like, they're, like, on the other side, and they're talking, and they're like, "Hey, I bet you can't get her to summon a demon on the air." They're like, "Oh, yeah, watch this," and they just push through a bunch of random Latin
Yeah.
on the
They're like, hold my beer.
they'll say everything.
Ooh, my goodness. That is relevant though. Because so the question of whether another other dimensions or even a spirit world exists at all has has been a huge part of our reality and in media and journalism and everything over the last about 2 years, probably since the shutdown, because well, more people started studying it. There's more investigative groups, but that's the thing. People can be, and we've talked about this before, people can be manipulated
Mhm,
very easily, which is scary because, and I even have had so much experience in being able to identify when that's happening to myself anyways, and able to stop it or recognize it. But it still happens to me a lot. For instance, if there's a malevolent spirit that's trying to mess with me, I'll be doing something like, I don't know, going in and out of a door or something that I'm coming right back in, like I'll walk my dogs or whatever. And I'll catch myself like locking the door from the inside, about to close it and lock myself out.
hmm,
And I recognize that it's like one of those like trickster type, just passing through spirits, trying to get me to do something like that. And sometimes, of course, if I'm tired or whatever, things like that do happen, and that can be dangerous. And I think I've watched plenty of videos and stuff, especially with people having ring cams and security systems and everything else. And you'll see people doing something, like breaking into a car or building or whatever. And sometimes you can actually see the spirit manifest in them or outside of them during whatever act or criminal thing they're doing.
mhm.
And obviously, the person probably doesn't know that that's happening. So, what are your thoughts on that? I'm going to see if I can find this video to show you.
Um, I think absolutely that happens. There have been times, going to and from cases that we've been working where, and this is one of the reasons that I've stopped talking about the paranormal in public. There we'd be going on an investigation, or it'd be getting close for me to go and investigate something where we believe that the family was in danger. That's pretty much the only time that I'll go out and do residential investigations now, is if there's a child there, if they're legitimately terrified, even if, like,
Mhm.
it's not something that is harmful, they're just scared. Um, but there have been times where we've been driving and somebody will step out in front of the car, and nobody was there. And like, you go to you go to swerve. I live in the mountains. I'm in Tennessee. I go up into the Smokies a lot. If you swerve, you're going off of a 3 or front 400-foot cliff. So I mean,
Right.
there are times where it does get dangerous, and you can see things trying to manipulate you around certain activities that you're doing. Yeah, on a lesser note, I mean, there's times where you'll get into this state when you're in a state of flow, like you're in the zone, you're doing work. Like it happens with me a lot with doing analysis. So, like, I'll be sitting and I'll be going through video. I'll be going over stuff from data loggers, just trying to match up environmental fluctuations with things that were noticed. And like, I'll be into it. I'll be into it. I'm not paying attention. I'm not paying attention at all. I'll go to pick up a glass of water, and um, I'll end up just not paying attention to what I'm doing, or like I won't notice that my hand is about to pour water on the electrical outlet or knock something over onto
Right.
my keyboard and just completely fry my stuff. It's weird, and I'm like, "That wasn't me. What the hell was that?" Or excuse me, what was that? Sorry,
Yeah.
radio. But, and it's interesting, it's weird. Yeah, I don't know how it works, but I do believe that there are certain things out there that manipulate us. Where they came from, if it's some ancient being or if it's a ghost or if we completely made it, uh ourselves. I don't know where it came from, but yeah, yeah, I think there's some things out there.
I think kind of both because many of what we know about energy now and with the living anyways, which is why I think it does need to be studied again on a scientific level because in the 1800s 1800s early 1900s psychics and mediums and seances and things like that were very popular there for a while, and they would do basic things like most investigative groups start out with, and they would have a medium, they would have seances and such. And now, knowing what we know, I believe that things like that, if you have a group of people holding hands, sharing their energy, and saying, make this ball move, I believe that is more of the living energy, kind of, it's comparable to like poltergeist activity and stuff. Because if you have that many people, if you have five people sitting around in a group, and the medium says what you want a door to open or you want a ball to move or something, and you're all thinking that same thought, to me that's more the law of it, like the law of attraction, like the you're projecting your I mean technically it's telekinesis, but it's like group, a collaborative group effort telekinesis. And so of course I would expect that to happen, but that doesn't mean it's a spirit. um
Unless you made one. If you
well,
look at
right, right.
the Philip experiment, I don't know if you how far you've looked into that, but
Mm-mm.
so, what was interesting with the Philip experiment was they tried it with the lights on. They tried it in a clinical setting. Basically, they made up a character, and I'm not gonna go into detail because 'cause there's been so many different characters made and so many different versions of this experiment run. But they basically made a character with a background, tried to believe in it, tried to make the character basically focused, hyper focused on this being that they made up to make it manifest. And it never worked until they turned the lights off and they started doing treating it more like a seance and allowing their imaginations to run away with them and allowing them to get into a state of actual what is that uh, suspended belief or a place where their belief or their view of reality was a bit more pliable. And when they did
Interesting.
that and they started making it more like a show, they actually got manifestations. I know in I think one instance, the spirit of Philip actually physically manifested, and it would talk and it would tell them certain things. But the thing about the communications, and they would do like rapping and stuff, where it would knock on walls in response to questions. But what was interesting was the spirit never knew anything outside of what the collective consciousness of the table knew. So if one person knew a historical fact about the same time period as the spirit, then that would come through. But if there was a hole or a gap that like nobody at the table knew, like well, I mean they weren't really history majors, but they then the spirit itself wouldn't. So it didn't exist. Its consciousness didn't exist outside of the experiments. But when they focused, they were able to get these incredible manifestations in front of groups of people. And this has been done a couple of times.
So, just so everybody knows, and I put this in the chat room too, so you can read it, but you can see it on the screen. I posted a word that I actually got. I took a screenshot of when it was. This was like 5, 10 minutes ago before Tanner actually started talking about this subject, right? Are you familiar with that word? I don't even know how to pronounce it right.
Nope, no, it's French.
Did you read the definition? That's basically
Yeah.
exactly what you just said.
Yeah, and that's how the Philip experiment worked. When we go into these haunted locations, when we go in to investigate, there's a lot of times that I believe what we're interacting with is actually ourselves and what we're wanting to see there.
But
Teams will go in similar situations to the Philip experiment. We'll get EVPs, we'll get rapping, we'll get knocking, we'll get things actually showing themselves. But how much of that is just a charged area that's in a spot where there's a lot to play with, and then like we're actually imposing our own beliefs of what's gonna be there, onto the environment, and just
interesting.
getting that mirrored back, and, hauntings work the same way, like, if, you go in with a family, this is something that I've noticed with cases, we'll go in, there's a lot of turmoil in the family, there's a lot of stress, there's some fighting, maybe there's some infidelity, there's some pretty deep-seated issues in a lot of these hauntings and a lot of these situations we go into, and there's these horrible, violent, scary manifestations and, haunting activities that are scaring the children or scaring the family or somebody in the house, and when we get the family into family therapy. We find out, we get the truth and get everything out in the open, get people taking care of themselves, get people going out in the park and getting more sunlight, spending more time together as a family and working on their mental and emotional well-being. They might still have manifestations in the house, but they're not scary anymore. They're more pleasant, they're more docile. Suddenly the demon becomes a friendly ghost. I think a
I
lot of
think that's
this is
perception too. You
it could be
know,
perception.
um,
But that's the whole thing. Our reality is shaped by our perception.
well, right,
With
right.
these entities, I mean, yeah, there's a possibility that a lot of these, like, they're just scared because the ghost is trying to communicate and they're seeing it through
Mhm.
the visor of everything's negative, everything's bad, and then they flip
Right.
it and they see it differently. But there's been times where, like, things are physically thrown, the entity itself, when we investigate, is itself violent. And then, I mean, it takes months. It's not an overnight thing. This is months and months and months of work on the family. But when we do get a manifestation, it's a more pleasant, EVP, or maybe the activity just dies down and goes away, completely.
Hmm.
It's and that holds pretty consistently. So I don't know whether there are entities who, you are what you eat, whatever it feeds on, the energy that it feeds on is what it reflects back, or if the families themselves are actually causing the manifestations.
Well, family, I would agree with that. Family, but it could also be land, house, um, neighborhood. I think,
That plays a part. Like like looking at it, it doesn't happen that way everywhere. There has to be some sort of energy, something that is different about that location that leads to activity being
right.
possible in the first place. But when I say it's like the family haunting themselves, whatever the energy is there,
Oh, they
maybe
feed
it is
off
an
that.
entity, it feeds off of it and it
Mhm.
reflects back what it's seeing, or there's an energy there that's not really a personality. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And
Mhm.
the personality or the combined focus or the combined exuded energy of a family or a person kind of, and this is a super simplified version of it, gives it life, to where it takes on a personality.
So, which is interesting. Um, and I agree with that too. But I think I think with this, what I'm trying to convey is that once you get past all of that and the scary parts, and that you're trying to, the spirits and psychics and demons and everything's always been portrayed throughout history as very occult and negative and everything. But once you get past all that and you know that that's not necessarily the case and you can learn from it. I get information about things happening in the world that I know nothing about. I mean, it could be talking about, what did I get one day? Some sort of fungus living in the ocean on sharks and their migratory habits and all this other stuff. And sure, that could be coming from something, but it wasn't, and I knew it was in the future. And then like 3 weeks later, this was over the summer, um on the news, these sharks had washed up on shore somewhere that had this weird fungus that had never been seen. Um, and there was a whole storyline to it, so it's not something I was expecting. It's not like I couldn't even pronounce the words. Um, and it's not, and I do the same with automatic writing with no I could be in the middle of nowhere and have a piece of paper, and something would channel through in that manner. But I think things like that we could actually learn something from. I mean, we could, like, I'm getting those messages for a reason to actually perhaps do something about it, or maybe it's alerting us to which I also disagree in a lot of forms. People ask mediums why we don't stop things from happening, or warn people for certain things. And I don't think these aren't for that purpose. Like, these are more of a knowledge advancement for science and biology and things like that. You know what I mean? Because it's not things that would it's things that we need to know about that maybe aren't being studied or something, or maybe that haven't even been in existence for however many hundreds of years possibly. But I think that's where the future of paranormal investigation is going in research, because I have always said this. I'm like, if you have the ability to talk to anybody who has ever existed in the past or the future, because timing is fluid, people need to realize that a lot of times we project ourselves into many situations that probably haven't even happened yet in our reality. And so when you have that ability, then why are you asking something to knock on a door? Like, ask it something, how the universe works. You know what I mean? Um, but I think that's where this is going, which is interesting. It's like I need a better tool, though, than,
Yeah.
like I need a better.
Well, like tools and techniques, that's the future. Everything's circular, so it's not point A to point B. It's point A, point B, point C. Hey, Raymond. Um,
Hey, Raymond.
and like then you're back to A. So like when we started with ghost hunting and we started going in and asking these things to like rap on walls and stuff, that started with us experimenting with mediums, trying to find out what was going on with mediumship and how that worked. That started 100 years ago. That ran um that ran pretty serious research into like the 19 teens, 1920s, and then it kind of switched, became fringe, and I think it picked back up sometime around the 60s. And it ebbs and flows, and we go back and forth from looking at ghosts to parapsychologists, which ghost hunters, not ghosts, parapsychologists study how paranormal interactions or paranormal activity could actually be caused by humans
Hmm.
our ability to see. When I say like our perception is everything and our perception is our reality, that's not just saying like what you're seeing, that's what you see, what you feel. The world around us isn't actually the world as it is, it's the world as our brains have evolved to see it and experience it. When you touch something, you don't ever actually physically touch anything. The
Right.
electrons will not allow you to touch, and it's at a microscopic level, and as far as your perception is, you're touching that, but in reality, my hand's on my desk right now, I'm not actually in physical contact with it, um, and
So,
if your perception allows you to experience time in a non-linear fashion to where suddenly you can see, feel, touch, taste, do something that leaves an imprint on you from another time, That's interesting. Is it random? Is there a way or a tool or technique to really focus that? And I mean, right now there's not, but I don't know. I always thought that was interesting, from like a parapsychological point of view, and the way that they've studied. I've tried to bring a lot of that into my ghost hunting and stick true to those roots because the what when it comes to like what we're going to find out and what we're going to be able to do as ghost hunters or as paranormal investigators has more to do with our senses and how we feel as humans than it does any electronic device that we take out in the field.
Oh, absolutely. Brian says, "Oh, yo yo, I won't say hi." How rude. I have not been a stranger. I've been like off the grid for everyone. So an interesting thing that I've been thinking about when today, actually, in the last few days, as you were saying that, because it's come up a lot on weird, when I like overheard conversations at work today or on TV or whatever. But um, what if, when you were saying when we touch something, we're not actually touching it, and if you get into the science of cells and cellular structure and atoms and everything else, um, I was thinking about in mythology and even in anything supernatural, anything, uh, even going back to like hieroglyphics or cave drawings or whatever, they're talking about sirens, or mythological creatures that, or like shapeshifters or skinwalkers or anything. So, and it was the story about the horse that, um, comes out of the sea, and people get entranced and like charmed and follow it back in and to their death, right? Um, But what if all of these negative things, these shapeshifters, what if anyone can do that? What if we all can do that? We don't know it. Because I realized in one of my near death, or many of them, or maybe some of my astral travel or something, somewhere in between there, collectively in my own life, I realized that every time we do that, we lose parts. I don't want to say, well, yes, I want to say our souls become kind of fractured, and or not fractured. Well, that's kind of a good way because it does split up, but like fragmented in different areas. Like we leave part of that there. We leave part of it's our energy, we leave part of that everywhere we go. And energy never goes away. So what if shapeshifters, because there's negative ones and there's positive ones throughout history and mythology and stuff, you have unicorns that were supposed to be good, but then you have bad ones, like the horses that draw you to the sea to die. But what if all of that, n- we also know that we project how we want other people to see us, mentally, physically, energetically. If you
Oh,
think you're
absolutely.
invisible, then you will become that way to everyone else. If you think you're confident, if you think you're whatever it is. So, in that sense, if we can change our cellular structure, imagine at a higher level of consciousness being able saying, I want to be a unicorn today. And that's how you project yourself. You literally could change. Does that make sense? What I'm trying, I don't know how I'm trying to
No,
say
yeah, it
that.
does.
It made
Like
sense in
there's
my head. Like, this.
at a much lower level, like, when I go into a sales meeting, when I go in to negotiate anything for a platform, or I am pitching, like, some sort of at work, like, some sort of, campaign or something that we're gonna do,
Mhm.
I visualize myself super positive.
Right.
I make myself a bit bigger. I'm, a bunch of alpha males that I'm usually pitching to, so, like, I take up as much room as possible, and when I start talking and when I'm in charge, I am in charge, and I am projecting that vibe of, "Shut up and listen to me, I'm in charge." So and on the flip side of that, when I need to listen or someone is uncomfortable and I need to talk to them, I'll make myself a lot smaller. I'll make my voice a little softer, a little lighter. I'll concentrate on making that person feel um more comfortable. And if you were to ask that person who is in the sales meeting with me what I look like, and you ask, and we've done this. I did private investigations for 15 years. I did this when I was working undercover. I did this when I was doing investigations where I needed to interview multiple people that I knew did not want to talk to me. If you asked one person what I looked like and asked another person what I looked like, they described totally different people.
Oh, yeah.
Um, because yeah, physically, just physical appearance, they would describe completely different looking people. So it's
I just
interesting
had that
how
conversation with someone about religion earlier
hmm, interesting.
because he said, he didn't know what paganism was and had Googled it and everything. And this was a very reputable, very intelligent, retired um, psychologist, actually. And um, he said he came up with multiple different sources that said it was this or that. And I'm like, well, it depends on what part of the world and where that information's coming from. Because technically, like in my opinion, there's billions of religions in the world because everybody has their own perspective. Whether even if you're in Christianity, everybody's perspective of the Bible is different. Everyone's um, furthermore, like in the U.S. opposed to Europe or Asia or anywhere else, everything's different as well. Brian and I talked
Yeah.
about that one time. He's like, well, the way history is taught in America opposed to Canadian schools. Right. It's completely opposite based on perspective.
Well, like, look at the I don't know if you've read this or watched the TV show, but, Neil Gaiman's, American Gods. There's one part in there, and I love it. There's, 15 billion different Jesuses at this one house. Basically, gods are created from the beliefs of man, so, and they're trying to revamp themselves. There's, like, a god of Wi-Fi, a god of, publicity, goddess of spring, which actually she was the goddess of spring, and then so many different Jesuses.
Well, it's like
Um,
nowadays everyone's the chosen one.
yeah.
Everybody was a few years ago was Mary Magdalene, like reborn.
Joan of
But
Arc,
if
like, back when I
we're
was a kid, that was a good one.
right, if we're all one in that concept that everything is connected, we're everybody, we're everything all at once, which is completely mind blowing and almost incomprehensible for the human to mind to wrap itself around. But the more I research these things, the more I study and go back and forth about it. I, everything, because I was doing recent Bigfoot studies that showed the one DNA they came up with in the northwestern part of the US wasn't anything that's been discovered before, but it was partially from very, very, very old DNA, um, almost like caveman era. A combination of that and a modern human DNA. So that would be time travel for interbreeding. That would mean that, which there's been tons of cases, these women have said that a big, Sasquatch abducted me and kept me for a month at their camp, and they come back and people always thought they were crazy. Like I went back through newspaper archives that have probably been forgotten, you know, um, and they say things like that. But then I'm like, that would be an incredible concept. Like, what if a Bigfoot from the past absolutely knew how to project into the future? And here we think they were dumb,
Yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what, that's the whole end is the beginning, or the beginning is the end is the beginning type concept. Like, what if to preserve their own race as well, they did absolutely, on portal days, those dimensions cross and they abduct a woman from the future or a man, however it goes. I
Mhm.
mean, I guess a female Bigfoot could, abduct a man or whatever, bred with them, release them. But that DNA would be the perfect combination of past illnesses and weaknesses and everything else and future, which is a crazy. I know most people are going to be like, what is she talking about? Like that is making. But
I mean, yeah, it temporal anomalies and things like people going into a situation, being in there for hours and coming back out and realizing that according to their clock and the people that they were with, they were gone for 10 minutes. There was a situation that I was in several years ago. It was one of the first things that I did. Was at a location. There was a time slip. It was dark outside, and then suddenly it was daylight. There were these guys walking around, and it was at a school. I saw them working on parts of the school, and then it flipped again, and it was back, and it was nighttime.
hmm
We physically touched that, physically interacted with the people that were there, physically interacted with the things that were around. It was more than just seeing stuff, and the other guy that was there with me saw the same or something similar because he was in a different part of the school. But, yeah, when it happens, like, it's super interesting. There's another place that I went, they have photographs in this mirror, and, like, so every once in a while, they'll take photographs. It's this place down in Savannah, and somebody will be standing in the mirror,
hmm
but it's not somebody that's there. 3, 4 days later, next week, that person will walk through the lobby, exact same shirt, coming through, maybe the mirror caught them coming through the door, and you'll look on the security camera, and it's the same shirt, same pose, and everything coming through the door. Those temporal anomalies are amazing. Now, if
yeah.
something like Bigfoot, if something that was more in tune with nature, in tune with how things actually work, figured that stuff out and was able to move around, I think that would explain a lot, about why they're not being found. And, when someone is abducted or when someone has an experience with a cryptid, when someone has an experience with something, why is time so weird? Why are spatial anomalies, why are temporal anomalies so common around cryptid sightings?
Well,
Um,
because they
yeah.
can only travel during those times, during those alignments. Otherwise, they get stuck. It's like, okay, imagine like if you have, I think of those bridges that are on timers,
Mhm,
that raise for the barges and rivers. Um, but if you're planning on going over that bridge and you don't make it, obviously on time, then you're stuck there for another, till it lowers again, right? It could be, I don't know how long they take. I guess if it's a big one, it could take a long time. So that's how they've always shown me the bridge between, it's not between dimensions. It's it's not between worlds because it's all the same. It's all the same world. It's all the same dimension. It's just different times. So, but you're stuck absolutely. If I have absolutely experienced, not even on purpose, being stuck in a different. I thought it was a different dimension because everything was so different. But in hindsight now, because a lot of those things have happened, and then it was in the future, by accident. And I had another theory today about. I think that's what I'm saying. I think we've been doing this since the beginning of time unknowingly, without
mhm.
realizing it. Like you said, like deja vu and stuff. I absolutely, and dreaming of things that they've never happened. Or like I said, how else could a monster manifest in my life that I've never thought about, never seen on TV, never, or even as a child, things like that. I think it's all us. I think aliens are us. I think all of it is us in a different time through advancements or whatever. Um, I also had a thought that what if that contributes to things like Alzheimer's and stuff? What if by time jumping so much, because y- well, one, you would lose your being here on this planet would be fragmented, um, and it would become very confusing, and I think cause things like that maybe.
Yeah, I mean, well, fragmentation of personality or of a person, it's something that we associate with trauma. Someone fracturing it, it's like a deep feeling of something being missing. In times of stress where we know that where we have repeat hauntings, we know a large piece, and a large there was a large exertion of emotion and energy in that area to get that event to imprint.
Right.
Well, I say we think. Um, But, when we pass, when we die, if part of us is left, is it one single personality that's held together, or, a lot of our personality and how we regulate emotion is controlled by physical aspects of our brain, the shapes of our brain, the hormones,
Hmm.
the way things move, that's gone. So, the way
Right.
that we used to regulate emotion is gone because it was regulated primarily by hormones. So when we do pass over, if part of us does survive and move on, how much of us is left and how much of us is left intact? The places where we go in where we think there's like multiple spirits, and I know I'm jumping between theories here, but where we think there's like multiple spirits, what if it's just one, but it's like the lighter side of the person's personality manifesting here, the darker side manifesting here, or we do something that triggers it getting mad, and it cannot control or regulate itself. And the way that it controls and regulates itself is to split off into those uh, different entities or different manifestations.
Hmm.
Same thing with ghosts being seen at the same
It's like the
place.
magnet theory in witchcraft.
I'm not familiar with that.
Um, Dolores Cannon also just explained it with demonic possessions as well. Not that what I was referring to in witchcraft has I wasn't referring to that in the same sense, but um, she said that sometimes these entities are attracted to certain people or locations or whatever and affect them in a way by cause and effect by literally the different frequency reaction unintentionally, sometimes unknowingly, because not all of them are even intelligent entities in that aspect. You know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
not an intentional interaction. They're just attracted to that like a magnet. And they get caught up in that by, by default, basically. Um, Time and time travel and intentionally could have the same effect because I've always said this about witches too, which goes back to your fragmentation theory. Like witches, I think the perception was always bad because I'm always around people and disasters and everything because if I'm not conscientious of it, I'm attracted to that, not on purpose. And I started thinking about this. I was like, I'm like Mothman. Shit, here I am. Like, I'll meet a perfect stranger in public and then they'll die, in a car accident, something I had nothing to do with. I didn't even know the person. I didn't have any opinion. I was completely, I might have been standing next to him at a concert it is not like, I was like, is it me? Is it? And I started doing, I was researching this and I'm like, no, it is the same throughout history. Some have been called angels, some have been called demons, some have been called witches, some have been called Mothman, Valkyries that assisted warriors to battle, um, healers. I mean, good and bad based on perception. But maybe they had nothing to do with it. They were just in the vicinity. You know what I mean? Because they're attracted to that.
Mhm.
Um, it was guilt by association. Like literally, they got blamed because they were always there. You know what I mean?
Mhm. No, that's, Mothman, that's a huge theory
Right.
with Mothman is he didn't cause it. He's not prophesying. He's a harbinger because he's attracted to
Yeah.
that specific type of energy that's around an event like that.
Yep.
It's like dating. I mean,
Oh my
do
gosh.
you
Yes.
you keep going from garbage relationship and garbage to relationship, you're
Yes.
attracted to certain qualities and certain types of energy, and it's gonna happen until, well, as people, we consciously change it, but that's a whole other type of podcast type of
Yes and
radio
no,
show.
because I think that a lot of things, even if we change them in our present
Mhm.
time, present there are still things that now we know from past lives or bloodlines or whatever that we also, it could have been my ancestors attracting this type of person or place or thing or whatever, and I'm having to overcome all of that. You know what I mean? It's like people saying, well, why doesn't this specific demonic entity affect you, Trisha? Well, it's because I've already conquered that one at some point in my life. It's literally like a video game. Like I've already leveled, like I passed that level, and then there's others that other people um I encounter have that I haven't, and vice versa, and so, but with the witch theory, we were always burned, right? I have dreams and memories per se of other lifetimes, and I mean, from the time I was like 2 or 3 and could talk, I would talk about being dying in fires in numerous different bodies, so I was different people. Now, whether all of those were my past lives or again a kind of collective um memory of who knows, maybe family members, maybe past coven member, who knows, whatever it was. But regardless, I had those memories and I would picture my being and my soul and everything um splitting up and going, like literally spreading all over the world, because in especially in native culture, the wind carries everything and the
Mhm,
water. And so ash, even in Viking, old Viking burials and things like that, um, they burn them. And so, but ash is very healing. Wood ash is healing to many things. Um, and it's a circle of life, but it spreads all over,
mhm.
via the wind or the water, or wherever you scatter ashes, or however that works. Well, in the paranormal field with wraiths, if their body is moved, I thought about this with like mummies and stuff too, being transported all over the world in museums, basically going on tour. Okay, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, are we unleashing, as you said, are we literally unknowingly like summoning demons and stuff, cursing ourselves all over again, all over the world? Because what if those, what if the pyramids weren't tombs, they were like prisons, you know what I mean? And like you release something and take it all over the world, and it's just like me traveling all over, even living, I spread my energy everything I've ever touched. And so with the ashes, or with bodies, with uh cadavers, anything like that, body parts, you talk about human organ transplant, um that carries on to the next person. So wraith entities uh are said to be the ones that aren't at peace, because they try to find their last resting place, correct? So
Uh, I
they go on this vengeance, like haunt everything, trying to find their body, quite literally.
I've heard those stories. So when it comes to lore, so I look into hauntings. I don't do a lot of studying lore in putting it into investigations. As a horror writer, I do because I look for inspiration there, and I have heard those stories, those old folk tales of people whose bodies were desecrated or moved, and
Hmm.
vengeful, wraithful spirits trying to find or trying to put their bodies to rest. You get that a lot with also murder victims whose bodies have never been found and
Yeah.
properly buried. And that's a common thing that pops up in horror stories. I haven't personally investigated one of those. It's not one that you that you would come by unless you were in some sort of like Hollywood situation where there was like a serial killer house or something. Uh, Actually, the book I'm writing right now. But if there's
See,
a yeah.
and that's why I was asking you. I
Mhm,
haven't researched any of that. That has been accumulative messages I have been given, or my own experiences.
mhm.
Um, I
Well, see
don't
that
know.
What's interesting
Oh,
is, like, what you were talking about a second ago with, memories that could have been from the past,
mhm.
um, elk. So and, if you get a chance, Stephen Graham Jones has a great book called Only Good Indians, but, he touches on this. So there are deer and elk and other animals that know to stay away from areas that are known for hunters. These, animals, as they migrate through the area, are generations behind wherever the hunting or the no, what no, where the predators are in the area, which were the predators. But they'll know to stay away from those areas instinctually. There's almost a genetic memory that tells them to stay away from the areas where past generations have been wiped out or past generations
Hmm.
have been slaughtered in hunts, and they'll instinctually stay away. We're animals. We have that too. My family. I'm descendant from a warrior clan, and we basically took possession of land and we took possession of a river and we killed anything that came near it. We went from that to being highwaymen and pirates, and that's genetically, I'm very territorial, and I have to actively push myself back from that. Specifically about land. Very, very, and that could just be a southern thing, but that's my clan. That's where I came from. That's in Scotland.
Well, and
That's what we
people,
did.
you can find out a lot about your past lives and where you came from by where you visited in your present life. I've learned. Um, but it's interesting you say that about I know the native background and a lot of the Celtic and stuff of an elk. So a few years ago when I lived in Manhattan, Kansas, I didn't know about any of this. I wasn't sure. I communicated with spirits, but this was before I embraced all that. I was terrified of it still, and but all this stuff. It was uh, before I had another heart attack, and I was in a cemetery and saw a headstone that said stag, and then all of a sudden up the hill there was this giant deer, which stag. Okay, um, and I have pictures of it. That right after that there was, I don't know, probably 8 of them that came out of the forest right by the cemetery and started surrounding me and just and so I was like, okay, I've kind of communicated with animals probably all my life. So that's not what was uh interesting about it, but they met me there almost every day and for a while. And then all of a sudden one day and they said dodge the hunter. They kept saying every time I left the cemetery they said dodge the hunter. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I don't hunt. Are they talking about like witch hunters? Like, are they talking about, whatever? Okay. Um, it was a few weeks later. Um, back then I was Christian. I was coming home from church and it said, I got a message intuitively, or like I heard, um, foreigner in town. But I knew it wasn't referring to foreigner as in someone from another country. It meant something from another dimension or planet or whatever. And I saw a dead deer, like a deer that had just been hit on the side of the road. And so I was like automatically, my instinct, I was like, oh, okay, that's bad. Like, because all this scenario had played out, dodge the hunter and the deer had been surrounding me and stag and all of this. And there was another headstone that said Freya, which obviously now I know. Back then I had no idea what Freya meant, or like that was um any type of mythology or historical name or anything, and so I saw the dead deer, and then I saw a field of, they were crows, not ravens, crows. They didn't look like normal crows. These were like enormous and almost robotic, and there were thousands of them. Thousands. Um and that's when and I talked about this for the first time ever on um the outer realm, but that's when I saw one of the biggest. It was literally like uh the invasion of, what was that, Independence Day. Um that's the
Mhm.
only, movie I've ever seen related to UFOs or anything when I was younger. But that's what reminded me of, like, a giant spacecraft over Manhattan, and there were just crows everywhere. And I'm like, okay, crows, and I know, like with Odin and the history behind that, they sent in the crow, or like, well, it wasn't crows, right? It was ravens with
Mhm.
Odin that collected the souls of the dead after a battle. And that's all I kept thinking. And I'm like, they're taking these people's souls. And I was wearing this shirt at the time, which I was wearing around Halloween on my show here, that said I love zombies, which is funny because I'm like, wow, wow. And that's when I thought I was stuck in the future when all of that happened. But that's about the deer.
Yeah.
And it was just like a few days ago, my son, I was washing my comforter on my bed, but it got late, and I was like, man, I don't want to wait for that or anything. My son gave me his blanket that has a deer on it, a giant deer, like that covers my whole bed.
That's
So
awesome.
thank you, Tanner. I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight.
Oh my god! Now the last encounter I had with deer, I was out for a trail run about 2 weeks ago, and there's a animal preserve, and so I was running. I got lost. So okay, this is kind of interesting. So I get lost, and the sun's going down, and there are very large cats that hunt back there. There's a lot of nighttime predators. So I'm like, okay, I have no idea how far away I'm from my car. I think I'm going back over to the ridge. I don't know where I am, and I'm running running the trails, and just out of nowhere, I look over at the side. I'm like, nature, whatever, just help me get out of here. And happen to look over and I see something white and square and just this perfect random piece of paper that was laying in an area that I had just gone through and circled back. And I pick it up and it's a map of the area that I'm in from the ranger station. Perfect, pristine. I'm like, cool. If I can find a
Ask
trail
and you
marker,
shall receive.
yeah, it's like if I find a trail marker, I can get out of here. So I just kept running, and I got to this one spot, and these deer were coming through, and so like there's these two baby deer, and I'm like, oh, that's adorable. Where's mom? And so like then she jumps out and squares up, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna stand here. I'm not gonna move. You're cool. I'm cool. We're all cool. And I'm like, as long as I don't move and do anything stupid, she'll be fine. And if you're laughing, these are 200-pound animals.
Oh, they
They
can
can do
be
a lot of
brutal. Like,
damage. Yeah.
they'll stand up on their hind legs, and literally it's almost like boxing. I mean, they
It'll cut you. I mean, they're sharp, but
yeah.
I'm like, she's not gonna bother me if I don't do anything stupid. And then the tree behind her starts moving, and I realize that it's not a tree, it is a massive male, a stag. And I'm like, "He will."
Oh yeah,
So
they get very
I was
territorial.
like,
Yeah.
"Alright." So, I just kinda pick up a stick and I start walking backwards, and I let them he stayed there forever. So, like, the kids female went off into the woods. She actually circled back and took a look at me and took off. He never moved. He just stood
Huh.
there, like, staring me down until they left, and, I kept trying to get up and go around, and he would just be there, and I'm like, "Listen." I finally just said it out loud. I'm like, "Listen, not gonna hurt you. I'm not interested in you at all. I just wanna get to my car before the sun gets," and it's getting dark, dark. I was like,
What
"I
day was
wanna."
this? Was this
Oh,
on Tuesday by any
uh,
chance?
I wanna say this was what did I do Tuesday? No, Tuesday was my wait day. This was, I wanna say, a Sunday. It was a Sunday.
Even worse. I mean, okay, not worse. I mean, it's amazing actually, and profound, because if you know the story, I was talking about paganism being one of the oldest religions there is, aside from Hinduism, and so at the changing of the seasons, after Samhain, which October 31st, and it kind of goes along with the days of the dead and such, the veils thinner these 2 months and everything. But regardless of that, you go from changing from the light part of the year to the dark part of the year. And there's an entire story about the Oak King and the Holly King. And one is represented um, as a stag, as a deer, um, that presents itself. But then you should also research, um, at this time of the year, there's a white, well, it appears to some people as all white, or like sometimes semi transparent or like translucent, um, a giant stag in the forest. And when that appears to someone on their journey, especially in shamanic beliefs, it's very symbolic actually. So that's something to check into, because it correlates exactly with the day and the lunar eclipse energy and everything.
Interesting. I'll have to check
Yeah.
that out. Um, what would that symbolize?
Oh, let me think for you. Camouflage and transparent. Your path, your map, your logbook. Why did I say logbook?
I log all my runs. I mean, that's I train for athletic events, so like I have a logbook. It's a digital logbook now, but I trace every run, every workout that I do to.
Forest road. Your camping. Like your power. Your why do I keep getting? Huh. That's and map, obviously. Map. You found the map. Something relevant about where you found. Oh God. What? I just found these and I didn't realize. So when I sat down, I just brought them to my desk when I started the show. This is, oh gosh, I'm gonna
Oh,
pull a
cool.
card. Yes. Yes. I'm like, what could that mean? And it's like, look down, Trish. Gosh, what are you doing right now? Inspiring animals. Oh, there's a giant deer on the front. This is by Maya Toll. Gosh, I feel
Cool.
I'm serious. This is why I need extra help lately from spirits and tools, because I'm like the worst. I'm like the worst witch. Have you seen that show? Because I like it's literally right in front of me. Okay, let me think about this. No, no. These are my like such special cards for me. So the fact that it wants me to, something's relevant. They have this is probably, I don't know if you could see. It's like gold. Um
Those are gorgeous.
yeah, they're so pretty. I never use them for any, like they're very special to me. Ooh, shit, there's one. River otter. So I don't know what these, did you see any otters? But I was thinking of rainbows. Um yeah,
No,
the
my son
illustrations
goes and
on
plays with them.
these. I'm sorry.
We have a season pass membership to the aquarium here. My son loves to go and just hang out with the otters all day.
I'm looking up. I love talking to you, Tanner. I always learn new things that I should be paying
Thank you.
attention
Likewise.
to, apparently. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm not familiar with these. Oh, camouflage. Okay, first of all, I'm going to read you because I just saw camouflage is what I was saying. Energetic camouflage. Okay, hold on. So river otter. This fashionista of the waterways stays warm in her plush fur coat and by wriggling and squiggling, generating heat with her ridiculously high metabolism. Like I said, have to do with running, right? River otters' inner fires fueled by constant snacking on crayfish and crabs. The cynical might say she's joyful because she gets to eat all day and not gain an ounce. But river otter knows that when you're lit from within, life provides endless amusement. Take that muddy riverbank, for instance. River Otter says, I see a water slide. Do you see it? River Otter reminds you to actively look for joy. She knows it's there waiting to be found. Now, while flipping through, I said I had said camouflage, um, because the deer that was behind the female you're referring to was camouflage, right? The big one. That's
Oh
what I
yeah,
kept getting in my head.
totally. Yeah.
So a few pages before is the refers to the red fox. It's in ritual energetic camouflage is what it says. Foxes at home slinking down a suburban street or running in the cornfields. Easily shape shifts her exterior to blend into her environment. You can too. Energy follows intention. So begin reworking your energy signature by thinking about what's making you stand out from the background energetic pattern. Are you moving too fast or too slow? Are you being too loud or too quiet? Are you projecting meekness or confidence? To energetically camouflage yourself, you need to vibrate at the same frequency as the world around you, aligning energetically with your surroundings. Shape shifting begins with changing your energy. Then you'll change the way you move your body to align with that new energy. We've talked about this before, haven't we? I said you have to, like when
Mhm.
I go into a haunted place, people, investigators, oh, throat chakra, um, have to understand that mediums have to literally lower our frequency to meet the energy of whatever we're trying to communicate. So with you, in order to feel more seen or resonate more with the animals in the forest, you
Mhm.
need to match your frequency um, with that. And I think you were doing that at the time because they didn't hurt you, and you found the map because you were in the flow. You were in that frequency, right? Um, so focus on the energy you're projecting and shift it with intention. If you're moving too fast, consciously decide to slow down. If you're being too meek, consciously decide to project confidence. This simple shift begins your energetic camouflage. Deepen the illusion by feeling into the energy you've donned and letting your body move in sync with it. Play with energetic camouflage when you don't need it. So you've mastered this ritual for the times when you do. Oh, I lost him. So, on that note, that's so interesting that right when I said that, he disappeared, which goes back to what we were talking about, the predator and prey concept of being camouflaged, and me saying, I think it's all an illusion. You know, who I don't know. It just says Facebook user. Whoever said Tanner used to be part of Children of the Corn. That's what they did. They literally came out of the cornfields and blended into the corn. I live in Kansas, so that's a huge. I have stories about that. Um, but yes, that's. We will end on that note. I can't believe we actually went 2.5 hours, so I'm over on my time. Thank you everyone for listening. This will be re-uploaded, I guess, on all of your major podcasts. Thank you again for um, Carnation for sponsoring me. Um, and I'm gonna research more into this, and I'm probably gonna use these cards more because they're beautiful. And I actually, this is the first time you all have ever seen me do any type of live reading, any type of spiritual anything as far as live um, spirit communication on the air. So I don't do it often, but apparently I should more because there's things that are right in front of me that I haven't been paying attention to. So, good night, everyone. I hope everyone's safe, and we will see you next week.